Well, as you know, I was an award-winning movie producer, and I developed a film on the genocide in Rwanda when the movie Hotel Rwanda was produced. And I couldn't get my movie made, but I couldn't get the women who had suffered during the genocide out of my mind. And I thought, I've got to figure out a way to help them. And I don't want to be, another charity. Who knows if they would ever get the money if I was another charity. So I figured out this business model because I knew the best philanthropy was a job, not a handout. And that's how it started. It started with 4 women, and now we've worked with over 200 women, and their lives have completely transformed. And this is almost 10 years that we're doing it, and we've been able to export a lot of the information from Same Sky to colleges, to universities, on women empowerment, and to tell people that they can do it too.
Today, a story about how a missed opportunity redirected a founder into her greatest passion, and the women who are empowered because of it. Hi everyone, I'm Tamara, and this is Views from the Top. Francine LeFrak is known for many things. She's an award-winning theater and film producer and an avid advocate for women's empowerment. She is also well known for philanthropy, but she is actively changing that label. Here's how she describes herself.
I'm a Philanthro-Capitalist. I'm a social entrepreneur that believes the best philanthropy is a job, not a handout. A job is about the dignity of work, and we all deserve dignity. People don't want aid, they want a life, they want respect, and they want an opportunity to show how good they are.
In 2004, everything changed for her, but it was a decade in the making. Here's her story. You were in the film and theater industry for a very long time. What was that transition like, going from film and TV and theater to Same Sky? And just tell me some of the projects you were working on. Tell me some of the projects you worked on.
I won a Tony Award, an Emmy Award, a Peabody Award. I was honored by the French government with a Legion of Honor. And when I decided to work on the ground in Rwanda, so many people laughed at me and said, oh my God, you can't give up show business for this. Are you out of your mind? What are you doing? But something compelled me in the strongest way. I knew I had to shed light on these women, and I knew I had to do it in a way that felt right to me. So I knew I had to come up with another kind of business model, and I knew I had to impact these women in a new way. And really, so much of what I've learned about metrics and making a difference and putting your energy where it counts came from this. So people say to me, oh, you're such a nice person. You went and you helped these women in Rwanda. And I went, wait a minute, let's stop there. I get more out of it than anyone, because what I've learned from them and their reconciliation, their ability to reconcile, their strength, their sense of pride, I take it with me every day. And every day it makes me a better person, and it makes me want to empower more people because I have become empowered by them.
That marketplace was the beginning inspiration to what would grow into a global business to empower women through what she called trade, not aid. And in 2008, Same Sky was born. Same Sky is a trade initiative that trains and employs women who survived the 1994 Rwanda genocide and are HIV positive. But for Francine, it was more than that. It was about building a community of women, and through that, empowering them to become leaders.
These women were so poor that they couldn't even afford free medication. They couldn't afford transportation to pick it up, and they didn't have consistent food to take it. They were literally waiting to die. And their families were waiting to die, and they really were planning for their death. But I wanted to give them a job, and I wanted to find a way to give them aid, but do it through trade, to give them a hand up, not a handout. So we started Same Sky to start working with them, because the women are so talented with their hands and their artistry, and to see them work is to see something extraordinary. You know, each bead that we sent them represented hope for a woman and her family. So the women, the impact of making jewelry not only gave them confidence, but also gave their children a life. So now their children sleep on mattresses. They go to school. They feel like the other kids at school. They can buy juice. I mean, the simplest thing. These women don't spend their time in enmity with each other. They spend their time thinking of their future, their pride for their country, their pride in their work. And it's so inspirational because they teach me so much. It's not just me teaching them. But what I did was created a marketplace for their jewelry because I wanted the world to know about them, but I wanted to give them an opportunity to deal with their health. So for instance, one bracelet would pay for their health care for one whole year. One necklace would pay for their child to go to school for one whole year. The whole idea was to pay them 15 to 20 times the average wage in sub-Saharan Africa because we wanted them to try to lift them out of poverty. And you can't do it by paying people $1 a day, and that's what happens with NGOs. And in fact, if I wanted to start another charity, I would never know if the women got paid. In other words, if I sent $10 to Rwanda, how many hands would touch it? How would I even know that women would get paid? But because I started a business, I could pay them each, and I would know they got paid, because that's what we have to look at in the world. We have to change the way we give aid and we give funding. We have to make it much more full of metrics and impact. We can't just send money. I mean, look at what's happened in Haiti with the billions of dollars. Look at the fact that people still live in tents. I wanted to know that I was making an impact with the money that I was sending. And to give you an example, just look at Clementine, who you met. Clementine recently gave birth to a non-HIV baby. She went to the doctor, and the doctor said to her, "Clementine, what are you doing? Your white blood cells were terrible, and now they're up to 1,200. And Clementine says, "I'm working. I have the dignity of work." And now Clementine opened a bank account, and Clementine has respect in her community, and Clementine is not subjected to the kind of sexual violence that so many women are subjected to, because people respect her. Her children respect her. She has a non-HIV baby. I mean, you get so much out of it just by, the fact that each bead represents hope for these women.
Now, I first met Francine in 2013. At the time, I had just finished a difficult project that I was frankly disappointed with. But Francine, she immediately told me her story, and it changed my perspective. And then she went further and invited me to Rwanda to see the women for myself. There was another aspect, though, when we were there, because I got introduced to all the women and where they were working, and it was a community. It was a community. I mean,
well, I want to talk to you about that because that's such an important piece of it. I didn't want the women to go and take the jewelry and go home with it. I wanted them to work in a collective. I wanted them to share and impact each other through the stories, through their questions and concerns as parents, whether they had an abusive relationship or they were opening a bank account or how much they should spend on rent. People need a community and a support system. I mean, the difference between the people in Rwanda and us is we have this amazing, we should be full of gratitude. We have such a great support system and we have so many opportunities. What do they have? And that's the whole point. If they work together, they impact each other, they empower each other, and that's what women can do. They can't be alone with their thoughts. They can't disconnect from the world and have the world get smaller and smaller. These women had each other, and they developed these friendships and this support system and this way to get things done, and it really was transformative in their lives. And therefore, it transformed my life because they act as a role model for me.
That's incredible. Well, I wanted to ask you because, we talk about business and investing, and one of the things you've done that is different is you've actually built women's empowerment into your business model. How has that been for you? Have you run into any roadblocks, and why did you do it?
Well, I think building capacity for women. Don't forget, women represent 70% of the poor, women and girls in the world. We have 1 billion people living below the poverty line. What are we doing for those women? Why should we be so disconnected from those women? I think empowering women through public policy, through building capacity, through building confidence is such an important piece of this. Why should we be disconnected from each other when we can empower each other and use our talent to empower each other? And that was the idea. As you know, I do all this work at the Kennedy School with the Women in Public Policy program, and we launched the Gender Action portal called GAP, which has the latest research on why write women in the Constitution. And some of the research that we've done has really changed the lives. For instance, we did research on why girls are not doing as well as boys do on SATs. And one of the reasons is because girls were afraid to guess. They were afraid to guess wrong. And because of our research, they've now changed the way that they mark and grade SATs. So if they skip one, you don't get penalized for it, because girls are different. They're afraid to speak up and they're afraid to ask. So this research is amazing. Also, there's so much unconscious bias towards women. And this is certainly another way. I can give you a study that was done, which is so fascinating, by the LA Symphony Orchestra. Why were there only 15% women in the orchestra? And the reason was because they needed to do blind auditions. And once they did blind auditions, now there are 45% more women in the orchestra. And they've taken this idea of blind auditions and have done it throughout the orchestras in America. So instead of having 15% of women, they have 45% of women in orchestras, because there's this unconscious bias. So any work that we can do to mentor, to empower, to train, to advocate for women is such a critical piece of this work. And all it does is it's kind of a chain that everybody touches and everybody feels better about, because we all want to do what's best for each other. We all want to be connected. We all don't want to be disconnected from each other. So if I can connect you to these incredibly courageous women in Rwanda, and you can feel, and you can wear a piece of jewelry they made, and you can feel connected to them, I'm empowering you as well as them. And I'm creating a movement of women who get such good feelings from each other and feel part of the same sky, you know, and they do. The women in Rwanda care so much about the women in America and the women in Australia that wear their jewelry and around the world. And the women in America and Australia think about the women in Rwanda and what are their lives like now and how are their children doing? And why should, you know, we have the internet, we have interconnectivity, but we're so disconnected as a society. Why can't we do something about it? And being conscious of how we consume and asking for transparency in how we consume is certainly one thing we can do.
When you first started this, you know, obviously you were building your passions and what you're passionate about and concerned about into your business. Did you have any roadblocks that you hit, and how did you get over them?
Well, I think that the first roadblock was not really having, you know, you have to build a marketplace. And this is a story people are not used to. Being more conscious as they can consume, shopping with ethical ideas in mind. This is something that you have to make a case, you have to make a story that is compelling enough for them to spend a little more money. And it's very, very difficult to convince them. Certainly millennials have helped with this, but it's complicated. And when it comes to people's pocketbooks, people lie. They say, of course I'll spend money to help someone, but at the end of the day, they won't. You know, they did a study about spending $20 more on an Apple computer if it was made in America, and people would say they would, but in fact they wouldn't. So people say one thing but do something else, and the statistics prove it, and all the research proves it.
And so you were a pioneer doing this. You were one of the first doing trade, not aid. How did you overcome that? How did you get past it?
Well, I just kept trying to reinvent the business model as much as I could, which is by doing home parties and doing shows like, hey kids, let's put on a show. The normal retail route was never going to be right for us. So I had to find other ways to sell the product and to create and galvanize a movement. And that's what I did.
For Francine, Rwanda was only the beginning of her reinvention of philanthropy and the new business model Same Sky was creating. She most recently expanded it into the US, employing women who were formerly incarcerated in Hudson County, New Jersey. Well, you're doing it all over the world, but you also do it in Jersey City, right across the river from us. What made you do it in Jersey City as well? I mean, this is such a unique program in Rwanda. You brought it here for a special reason. Tell me what that is.
Well, 46 million people live below the poverty line in America. And that, I don't know if you do know, but America is 5% of the world's population and 25% of the world's incarcerated population. Yes. And I couldn't turn my back on America when I was working in Rwanda, and I had to find a population that was really vulnerable. And the population that I started with was women just getting out of prison. Do you know that there are 1 million women on parole in America? There are 200,000 women now in prisons in America. And what happens when they get out of prison? Well, here's the big number. Almost 70% go back to prison within the first 3 years. This is such a critical time for them. So my idea was to work in a transitional living home, a halfway house, and to let them earn money while they were in the halfway house so that they could pay for court fees, that they could start to think, what do I really want to do with my life? And the impact has been fantastic. First of all, they have started to regain custody of their children. But they've also gone on, we've worked with over 200 women, and not one of them has gone back to prison, which is an enormous number. They've gotten jobs at UPS, at Blue Apron, at Supercuts. They've started their own entrepreneurial ventures, making pies, catering, and doing those sorts of things. But one of the most amazing things is how much they care about the women in Rwanda, because they say to me, we love making this jewelry, this is the kind of thing they make, but we feel better about ourselves because maybe we're helping the women in Rwanda, and they have it worse than we do. So philanthropy isn't a socioeconomic thing. Philanthropy is a state of your heart and your mind. And these women have empathy for the women in Rwanda. And the women in Rwanda have empathy for the women in Jersey City. So go figure.
I actually remember in Rwanda, they asked how the women were doing in Jersey City. And in Jersey City, when I met them, they said the same. It's really incredible. And I have met with the women in Jersey City more and have spent time with them. And every time I see them, they're so happy. And like you said, getting their kids back. That's such an amazing moment that they get, that opportunity. But I want to ask you, because we are talking about business, have there been any roadblocks to starting in Jersey City versus starting in Africa that you had to overcome?
No, it's still, creating a marketplace and not having strategic partnerships has been very hard. And not being able to make a strong enough case to retailers about, please sell this product, it has an amazing story. They don't have the time. Nobody has the time to tell the story. So the roadblock is creating a market and really making a case for it.
But you're really in tune with what's going on around the world, in politics and current events. What do you see happening right now politically around the world that you think politicians here should be doing more about? And is there something that people who have companies like yourself could be doing about it?
No, I think that we are making it's nonpartisan, the case for a woman, for gender and for women empowerment. It's really we constantly talk about why it makes sense to bring women into the economy more and to bring them into the formal economy. And I think that it's to everyone's benefit, for security, for economic development. I mean, there's just, it transcends any political party. And I think the politicians know about it.
But do you think that they're doing enough? Do you think that there's something that we could be doing as consumers to help drive that conversation or help sway them in a certain way?
Well, I think that social media is helping a lot. I really do. And I think in terms of what we could be doing, I think we have to become more conscious as we consume to really ask, where are the products made? What is the transparency? Who is making it? Is it child labor? Are the people being treated fairly? What kind of world do we want to live in? Are our values being represented? I think we've got to start asking those kinds of questions as we shop and as we consume.
I love that. And I want to ask you one more question before we wrap up. We've talked about women's empowerment, and you do so much to help others and to get this conversation going. But what can a woman do to empower herself? What steps should women be taking? You know, it's so nice that we've had pioneers who are stepping up, who are saying, no, you know, this isn't right, and helping with policy. But as the younger generation comes up, what can the younger generation do to start empowering themselves?
Well, I know what's worked for me. First of all, think about what you're good at and what you love to do. Once you think about that, try to find a project that's on the ground that you can touch and feel, not just, you know, donate money, but just something you can really get involved with, that you use your talent, you use your skill, and try to, you know, make that connection, because that will empower and strengthen and give you confidence and build your capacity as well as someone else's capacity, because every single person is good at something. And we've got to figure out how to join all those forces together so we can really make a much better world and everybody can benefit from it.
I'm so happy that you were here today. You're always inspiring to me. You can be inspiring to all of our viewers on Views from the Top. How can people connect with you in Same Sky?
Well, please come to our website, samesky.com, or follow us on Twitter and Facebook and all the social media, or volunteer. You know, work with our ex-offenders and work with our artisans and become an advocate. You know, we also have the Same Sky in a Box where you can have your own trunk show and tell the story of Same Sky. But we want more people to be part of our movement. And really ask yourself, where did I buy that dress? Do I know who made it? And start asking that of retailers. Start thinking about that. Start becoming more conscious as you consume.
So when we first met, you told me that your biggest success came out of something that didn't work out, and you were so frustrated at the time. What was that, and what transitioned you to Same Sky?
Well, as you know, I was an award-winning movie producer, and I developed a film on the genocide in Rwanda when the movie Hotel Rwanda was produced. And I couldn't get my movie made, but I couldn't get the women who had suffered during the genocide out of my mind. And I thought, I've got to figure out a way to help them. And I don't want to be, you know, another charity. Who knows if they would ever get the money if I was another charity. So I figured out this business model because I knew the best philanthropy was a job, not a handout. And that's how it started. It started with 4 women, and now we've worked with over 200 women, and their lives have completely transformed. And this is almost 10 years that we're doing it, and we've been able to export a lot of the information from Same Sky to colleges, to universities, on women empowerment, and to tell people that they can do it too. They have a talent that they can share, and that's the kind of world we want to live in. And that's what we all need to do, is share our talent. Much more than money, we need to share our talent with each other, and that would make the world a much better place.
If you want to get in touch with her or just know more about Same Sky, here's how you do it. Well, that's all for today. Next week, a new passion and a new climb to the top. Follow us on social media for more behind the scenes and extra insight. I'm Tamara Lane, and this is Views from the Top.